I am currently in a coughing fit, so if I cough more than I talk, I hope you enjoy the pictures that are here, or maybe strike up a conversation with the person next to you. So my name is Brinda Penmetsa, and I am a student here at the University of Houston. And what I'm going to talk about is service and self-reliance. And to me, both are important in the way I look at things and view leadership as a student and community engagement. So the first question I want to ask is achieving success only possible through self-reliance? So how many of you have been in a group project where you get frustrated and then end up taking all the work on yourself? Yeah, that's a lot of hands, yeah. So this has happened to me more times than I'd like to, partially because I have the patience of a 5-year-old. It's something I'm working on. But also because I'm committed to seeing the end result being positive. And I know there's always that quote, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But for me, I want to make sure that I get an A on that project, or that the group evaluation ends up going well. So in that case, I do sometimes see self-reliance as being one of the key components of success. But as I've grown up and talked to different people and had different mentors in my experience as a student, and just as a person, I realized that success is not entirely dependent on you. It's dependent on who you talk to, and you'll hear that a lot, like it's not just what you know, but who you know, and how you utilize the connections that you have to make an impact and see your career aspirations become success and happiness for you. So I was listening to Hotline Bling when I made my presentation, so I was like, I should come up with a cute little slide that reflects that in some sort of way. And these are just some repetitive phrases that I heard growing up. I'm sure a lot of you have heard them as well. And you know, it's just be yourself, don't listen to what other people say, and be independent. I think a lot of us hear these phrases because that's what people we talk to, or even we identify as a path to success. Relying on yourself. Not listening to what other people say, just doing what you believe in and being yourself. Well, one thing that I really struggled with was the being yourself part, because I was like, how am I supposed to be myself when I'm still discovering what constitutes Brinda? How do I be myself when I'm still figuring out who that person really is? And so for me growing up, that was kind of a struggle because there were different things I was passionate about. I didn't have a set track. I wasn't like, oh, okay, I know for sure that I want to be an endocrinologist, or I want to do risk management or investment banking or something like that. I just knew that I had things that I was passionate about, but I didn't really know how they all fit together. And honestly, I still don't. I'm declaring finance as my major next semester, and I'm hoping to do an internship that'll help me identify which track to go down to, but I don't really know exactly what career I want to end up in. So when someone asks me that, I'm kind of like, go to a different conversation. Did you see the weather outside? It's a little colder than it was yesterday, which is like 70 degrees, if you're familiar with the area. So these 3 phrases really stuck with me, and I think growing up, you hear these phrases to rely on yourself, but what I've discovered through servant leadership is that allowing others to rely on you is how you discover who you are and how you can lead. There's one quote by Mahatma Gandhi that I really like, and it's, find yourself by losing yourself in service to others. And I really feel like that's important to me. So these are just some pictures, and I'm just going to use some funny examples of how success isn't entirely reliant on one person. So on the top left is a picture from the annual spring break trip that we do as Bonner Leaders, which is an organization I'm in. So we go over to Port Mansfield, which is not the party side of South Padre. It's the community family style setting where there always ends up trash on the beaches. And I'm talking about everything from like leaf blowers to tires to pacifiers. It was a lot of work, but me and some friends in the program did it all together. We cleaned it all up, and we're going back in the spring. So that's one way that success isn't entirely reliant on one person. The center one was a senior picture. How many of you have had senior pictures taken? Yeah, so obviously you need someone to be a pretty good photographer, and so success isn't entirely in your hands unless it's a selfie. which I don't really know many people that took their senior pictures with the selfie, but if you did, no judgment. Speaking of judgment, the top right is a picture of me sitting in front of a mini fridge eating as many Thanksgiving leftovers as possible, which I was not able to do without the help of my lovely roommate, who I'd like to thank, in addition to all of you for coming out tonight. So I'm sure you're wondering, where does the service aspect come in? Well, there's a lot of different definitions of service. If you look it up in Google, it's giving a service to someone else and helping someone, or servicing something is maintaining or improving a certain work. And so what I thought of is my definition of service. And that's routinely working to help others in a way that is either improving or sustaining their livelihood. And that's something that I've been able to do as a Bonner and as a student at UH, because I feel like a lot of what we learn and the experience that we get is outside of the classroom. It's these stories that you take into an interview. It's what makes you different than all the other people with a, 3.8 and a great resume. Because oftentimes we're always looking at what can I put on my resume to make sure that I'm hireable, and that's great, but I think more than just the organizations you're in, it's really what you make an impact through. That's what, at least in my experience, I realized that people are really looking for, and they want to see that real world experience. And oftentimes we think, well, I'm a student, I'm learning X, Y, and Z, I want to focus on my grades, but learning what your field is like is something you do with an internship or helping out, and sometimes it's stepping outside of your field. And that's kind of what I've done with the campus kitchen at the University of Houston. So I'm just going to go into a little explanation of what this is, in case you haven't already heard of it. We've been all over recently. So I had a class last fall. I'm a sophomore. I had a class my freshman fall called Introduction to Civic Engagement, led by one of my professors who's also a mentor. And he said, find something that will win a victory for the people of Houston. So we had to come up with a grant proposal of finding a way to combat something and address a need in the Third Ward community. Well, growing up in Katy, and not just in Katy, and other places that a lot of our students come from, whether it's Sugar Land or any other place, I feel like we kind of come in with this preconceived notion of what the Third Ward is like. You know, it's dangerous. I mean, my grandma still tells me, like, don't go out past 8 p.m. And I'm like, I think, it's more realistic is make sure you're home before 8 a.m., but that's the college student version of that. But I came in with these preconceived notions of what the Third Ward was like without knowing anything about it. One of the reasons I originally didn't want to go to UH was because I was like, oh, Houston, Katy, I know Houston, I know everything about Houston. I knew nothing about Houston. I didn't know anything about the culture, the richness of its history. I mean, there's been so much I've learned after coming to U of H just by taking the Metro Rail or going with my friends to Frenchie's, which is, if you don't know what it is, you should go. They have awesome red beans and rice and other food as well. But that's exploring the community is one reason that I got involved in service. And so understanding the community was one thing I really wanted to do, and seeing what the university already has. So I noticed that there's not really anything that we were doing that directly involves students in the dining hall. So I was like, what happens to all that food that isn't served? Because as you guys know, or you might not know, but almost half the food we produce is gone to waste, and that's for different reasons. One, a peach is just not pretty enough. And I'm not kidding. Like, sometimes, based on USDA standards, it's like, okay, this peach is slightly misshapen. It's rated as a second-rate peach, like, seriously. And sometimes if the peach looks a little bruised or something, it's thrown away. And so I was wondering, what happens to all the food that we have on campus in our dining halls that we don't eat as students? And so after working on this project, the Campus Kitchen, which we are a chapter of, and working with Aramark Dining Services and the University of Houston, of course, and local community partners, I thought we should do something as students, specifically the Bonner leaders, that program I'm part of, and do something about the food that would have been wasted and taking it to people in need. So it's usually easy to just be like, okay, I have this idea, I want to put it on someone, but I think the more important question is, what do you need? How do we identify the needs of people and then use our passion and our service and what we've learned in the classroom and from our parents and mentors and friends and translate that into impactful and intentional service? And so that's what we're doing. So we planned this project for a while, since the fall of my freshman year. I see two of my friends who are in the audience that have been working on this with me. And we actually started recovering and delivering the food on September 4th. And so since September 4th to date, we've recovered and delivered nearly 2,500 pounds of food. So that's actually a ton of food. And this isn't even, that's over a ton actually, and that's in approximately 3-ish months. And it's been a great, it's been a great success. And I've been really happy to be a part of it, because what we do is not just measure the number of pounds and the students involved and the number of residents at New Hope Housing that we take the food to, but what this really means. So actually right after this, I'm about to go to one of the locations we drop our food off at and serve it and have a conversation with the resident, because it's about stories. One thing that I think Kyle, I don't know if he's still here, mentioned was about sharing stories. And I think that's really important, and really understanding where people come from and why they're in situations. So in case you're wondering where we take the food to, like I mentioned, it's New Hope Housing. They're the largest partner in Mayor Parker's initiative to end homelessness, which has been pretty successful. Since our term began 6 years ago, it's been reduced by 60%. And it's been a great experience. And so we take it to people who are earning approximately $11,000 per year. So they really do need this, but we want to get to know who we're working with. And that's what has been really important to me. Okay. So one quote I have up here is, "Find yourself, be the person who is relied on." So whether it's mechanical engineering or law school or being a firefighter or a janitor, we're all providing a service in some sort of way. But right now, what we're all really focused on is our education, getting good grades, and getting the next step. It's always future planning. But what my challenge to you is to find a way to be engaged in service, whether it's on campus in the community that you were raised in, or coming up with something innovative. Sometimes we're often looking for the next big thing or what's new, but sometimes it's just seeing an existing program and how you can help with it. Maybe you have a small idea, maybe you have a friend that has an idea. How do you connect these networks to really make an impact? And that's what I've been able to learn through service. Giving to others has made me understand how I operate as a student and what I can improve on as a student leader. This is a picture of the Clinton Global Initiative University Conference that I attended earlier this year in March. And the funny story about this is it's an application process, and I applied last fall, but I didn't really want to apply because I had this idea and I didn't really know what to do with it. And my professor was like, "Well, that's how you find out. You write an application, you apply." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just chilling, watching Netflix, and I don't even understand." And he was like, "Well, just think about it. Why do you want to do this? Why do you have a passion? And maybe you'll find other people at this conference who are passionate about similar things or other things." And I can honestly say this was the best thing I did my freshman year. It was a conference of passionate student leaders across the nation and around the world even, coming up with ways to better their community or their campus. And it was awesome. And I encourage any one of you, or tell your friends to apply for something like this, or just come up with something where you're sharing your ideas collaboratively to make an impact. I have one quote from one of my co-campus kitchen leaders that says, "Food is only one aspect of poverty, but if we can help with that one aspect, it can go a long way." It's easy to identify a big problem and say, "I can't really solve it," or "This is too hard," or "It's going to take time." But if you really think about it, everyone is helping, like I mentioned, in some way with a different service, no matter what major or background you're from. And I think this is really important because in the huge scope of poverty alleviation and hunger and community service, I've learned a lot about myself, like I said, in the community that is the third ward, that's right here, and how it's supported UH and given back, and that's been really important to me. And so I do have a little acronym thing, and it's SERVE. So serving, empathizing, reflecting, vocalizing, and then empowering. The serving part is something that you can get involved in right now, and maybe it's joining a student organization, like I said, or being involved in community, helping out with the food bank, but putting yourself in a zone that's different than maybe what you usually do. I'm a finance major, not a nutrition major, but I've been really involved in looking at what nutrition education looks like and how we can implement that in the third ward. And then empathizing. It's really easy to sympathize and say, "Oh, I feel bad for this person," or, "You know, that really sucks," but really empathizing and taking a moment to talk to someone and saying, if you have a shared human experience that you can relate to them on. And then reflecting, that's something I do regularly, and just thinking about, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And then vocalizing. So this, I guess, would be an example of me sharing a story of how service and self-reliance tie into what I'm doing. And hopefully after this, you guys are encouraged to get involved in your community or on campus and share this message with a friend. And then empowering people. So originally our team started off as 5 for the campus kitchen, but we have 8 more freshmen that are involved, and it's empowering them because now they're like, hey, can we do this? And there are things that I've never thought of, and they've had their first in the project that I haven't, because we're sharing one experience united around service. And the last thing that I want to say is, again, together let's work towards creating a Tier 1 culture of service at the University of Houston. I think as students, again, we tend to focus on our GPA, our grades, and don't get me wrong, those definitely matter. But I think the experiences outside of the classroom are what really help you and help you develop those networks and have a story that you can share in an interview. What, again, makes you unique? Maybe it's giving a COOG talk. Maybe it's the fact that you had lunch with someone that you didn't expect to that day, and then you found a connection that eventually got you a job. But I think service is really important, and I think if you find a way to connect with others around service and really build on that, then you'll find that it's really impactful. It's impacted me, and I hope it can impact you. Thank you.